So, Andy, the last time I saw you, it was the All Ireland semi final. Rob Hennelly's free kick had just sailed over the crossbar. The cameras cut to the stand, and there you were. I don't know if you were crying, if you were wincing, or you were celebrating. It just had every emotion on your face.
Yeah, I'm not sure I was crying. No, I was. I think it was. There was emotion there, but it was sheer joy, and there was a bit of relief in it too. I suppose that the emotional attachment to the team and the players that were there before, particularly Robbie kicking that point, meant a lot. It was the first game I was with my wife Jennifer at as a championship game for Mayo, so it was a special moment and lovely to be there.
That was the first time the two of you actually got to go to a championship match.
Yeah, so we're like, sure, I'm playing since 2003. Like, so she, like, everything we went to was separate. Even when I was injured, I used to always travel with the team and stuff like that. So it was, the first game we got to go to together, and we get to go to the final now on Saturday.
Well, there you go. There's a good omen for you. Like that's a hell of a game to pick. How do you find that? Like, because obviously you're so used to being in the thick of the battle. How do you find a game like that and it goes the extra time and you're there in the stands? It's frustrating.
Oh, not a bit, honestly. Like, and I think of course, so like I'm actually fine, and I'm surprised how fine I am with it. But if you asked every past player, like, there's no part of that prep that you want to be part of, and that's the truth. It is, lads. It's such hard work. Like what Mayo and Tyrone are going through this week, in terms of getting their bodies ready, mentally preparing for the challenge ahead. Video analysis, the mental turmoil of, am I right? Am I not right? That nervous anticipation before you go out on the field. Like, I'm a middle-aged man now. Like, there's no missing that. I have a wife, 2 kids, businesses. I'm 38 in November. There was no part of me that, and that is the God's honest truth. I remember someone said to me, when the music goes, and people go, did you miss the run out onto the field? And I vividly remember thinking, watching Aidan running out, kicking the ball with his left leg down the field, and thinking he's waited all his life to do that. There was no part of me thinking I'd love to be running behind him. So It's a very nice situation to be in for me. But I just got to the age and the time and my body where it just couldn't go anymore. I presume fellas that still feel they've something to offer and still feel that, okay, I could be better than this guy or the next guy. I believe there could be a bit of regret there or nervousness there that, but for me, I just reached the point. I probably reached that point, if I'm being perfectly honest with myself, in 2017, and that's probably when I should have packed it in. So I probably had 2 years there hanging on anyway,
Well, it's funny you say that's the year you won the Footballer of the Year, though, right? And you scored 1-5 against Kerry in the semi-final. Like, that's a funny year that you felt that way.
I was, but we were. Like, that was our pinnacle, that team. That was the pinnacle performance. It was the best we played. It was to get ourselves into that shape. I remember being in South Africa, between the All Ireland final in 16 and the league start in 17, and like there was a sense of, let's make one go at this. We could take these guys down. I felt there was.
Yeah.
Like I was 34 that year in 17. I think my birthday was actually the night of the All-Star Awards, or the night before the All-Star Awards. And we were expecting our second child that January. And, life just moves on. It doesn't wait, unfortunately. You'd love to sometimes press pause on it and say, can we wait here for another while longer? But it doesn't. And it was just, for me, it was just, there was a sense of finality to that defeat,
It's such an interesting one, because I remember hearing both Oshie McConville and Jack McCaffrey talking, and I completely understood where both were coming from. And they were saying different things. So Oshie McConville talked about retiring, and then he was watching Cross McGlen matches, and he couldn't help but get involved. So he said he got involved too quickly. He managed the next year then because he was on the sideline feeling like he wanted to change something. But then Jack McCaffrey, just what you're saying, after the All-Ireland final against Kerry, and he spoke on off the ball, like the final whistle went, and he thought, shit, they have to do this again. Like, we have to build up for 2 weeks again. And I really understood then, like, what he was going through for 2 weeks up until then.
Yeah, and I think that's people are saying, I heard different reviews of Jack's one where they said, well, pity about you, you won 4 in a row. But it was, but I totally understood what he was saying. Yeah. It is not easy, lads. It's you give up. you're in my case, time with my daughter at the time, you give up time with your wife, your job gets affected by it, your whole mental state gets affected by it. If you have a night where you don't sleep, you're panicking, if your food isn't right. So you give up an awful lot to prepare for a final. So I totally understood where Jack was coming from. On the ushing side of it, getting involved too quickly, I've done the same thing. I've literally retired. I went straight into it. But I kind of set my stall out a long time. When I was injured in between 2012 and 2014, like I was kind of planning my kind of course in terms of coaching at that stage. So I was kind of planning from then and a couple of more years of playing. So I was kind of ready for it when I came out, you know.
I just wanted to chat to you then, like you're talking about your playing days. That sort of, you had a great access in the forward line, like, you know, so for the most part, it would have been Jason Doherty going out a little further, yourself and Killian O'Connor inside, and it worked really well. Like, you know, Jason won the ball further out. But then I was thinking about, you know, Kerry's system that they were trying to bring, where it was Paddy Clifford and it was Sean O'Shea and David Clifford, but then Tyrone just shut it down because they were able to shut Paddy Clifford down, you know, as much as they could. And they were able to condense that sort of middle third, so the balls weren't coming in as easily. So I was thinking about you, and I know everyone says you have to be patient and stuff, but how does that actually play out then? If you're full forward in that game, or like, you know, obviously coming into this All-Ireland final, and Tyrone are just strangling that middle third, and you're not getting those nice pop balls inside, like, what do you do differently then to try and actually get on the ball?
But the biggest problem Kerry had is that there are two guys that they needed to score, needed to be in front of the goal. So essentially, if we played Tyrone in 2016 like we did, my job would have been to run further towards the sidelines, twin ball out there. So I'd be pulling McNamee with me, and then I'd be opening up the centre channel for the likes of Lee and these guys coming through, where Kerry's game plan was built on having Clifford and O'Shea close to the goal.
Yeah.
So in a way, they were getting all the scores, but in a weird sort of way, they were kind of blocking up the zones for Cavan White, Breen and these guys to run through the middle, and Paddy Clifford. So it was a strange one, where my job in that team would have been, you move Frank Burns or Justin McNulty or Colin Cavan at the time, you move them towards the wing. So now the central channel for Lee, Aidan, Jeremy O'Connor to run through would have been open. So it had been just a different style, and each team has a different style. And people say that Tyrone shut down Kerry. Kerry's forwards scored 22 points out of the 30 shots that they took, which is just a ridiculous stuff. So it shows the fine margins Tyrone made Kerry play off, and it shows what Mayo are going to have to deal with on Saturday.
It is an interesting one that you're talking about the runners, and like Mayo still obviously have so much power coming from down the pitch. And I heard that, like, maybe this is just typical now of a build-up where Mayo were in the All-Ireland final and everyone's worrying about every little thing. And one of them was, you know, runners coming into Tyrone's defence, where they would generally get players back if you run at them. But I was thinking Kerry needed those lads, like, to really, like, you're right, like, they scored 22 points, but I was thinking they all needed to be on it. Like, that's their game. Like, Sean O'Shea, Paddy Clifford, David Clifford all need to be really firing. Whereas I don't feel like Mayo need that. So in a way, like, even if their runners plays into Tyrone's hands sometimes, I don't feel like they need their forwards to really set the place alight.
Yeah, and I think what Tyrone did really well against Kerry, and what James Horn will be screaming at his team this week, is coming into that game, I think Kerry had 114 scored from play from their backline and their midfield. So Kerry had two ways to attack. One was through, obviously, Paddy, Sean and David Clifford, and the other one was from Gavin White, Paul Murphy, Breen, David Moran, Jack Barry, Tom Sullivan, all coming from the back, Foley running through. So Tyrone decided, which one of these can we take out?
Yeah.
They decided, we're not going to stop David Clifford. He is going to score, maybe, they probably said 5 or 6 points, but the genius that he scores 8 or 9. And they decided to take out Gavin White. Kieran McGeary takes out Gavin White. Myler does Paddy Clifford. Tom Sullivan hadn't really an influence going forward. He played brilliantly defensively, but hadn't really an influence going forward. Breen had a little influence. Murphy had a small bit. David Moore and Jack Barry, these guys had no influence going forward. So for me, Tyrone identified 2 ways that Kerry can attack, and they took out the second one. And you know, it allowed them to be in the game down the stretch. And when it came to it, they had more the eye of the tiger, as we say, than Kerry had.
So how do you play it if you're James Horn, or if you're part of the management team, and obviously the stat was that Kerry had 100% of their kickouts, got them away, but that didn't seem to bother Tyrone too much. If you're Rob Hennelly or coaching him, like, do you take those easy kickouts, or do you still have to go long and try and get further up the pitch quicker?
It's a really tough one. I think Kerry are a different animal than Mayo. I don't think Mayo will tire the way Kerry did. So Kerry then had to run everything essentially.
Yeah.
So I'd say if you looked at the GPS data from the semi-final between Kerry and Tyrone, I would say you would see Kerry covered way more ground. Because if you think about it, Morgan kicks the ball long, Frank Byrne stands, does not move, stays in the centre, and the Kerry boys are sprinting towards the break zone. Tyrone didn't care if they lost the break, in my opinion. They were trying to break the ball forward. So it's a very dangerous ploy, but if they lost it, they were set up, they didn't mind. Then if they give Kerry the kick out, which they did, they gave Kerry a lot of their kickouts. Now all of a sudden Kerry need to run the ball 120 metres up the field. So both ploys were basically tiring that Kerry team out, where they were running and moving, where Tyrone were setting themselves into a shape, and Kerry struggled to break that shape all through because they couldn't kick the ball in long, so they had to run everything. And then all of a sudden, when as I said, good coaching is about giving your team a real chance coming down the stretch. And Dewar and Logan, Joe McMahon, Pete Donnelly, and these guys gave their team a chance coming down the stretch. And when they did that, Kerry had ran the legs off themselves at that stage, and it was all over. And
you think Mayo won't have that problem because they have the legs better than anybody, probably?
Well, Mayo play a running game, and they've played a running game. Like Mayo, we're traditionally a team of half-backs, aren't we? So, like, we've always played a running game. And as you said, we don't rely as much on the genius of since Killian got injured, we don't rely as much on the genius of a David Clifford or Killian O'Connor to get our scores. So we've dealt with that, and James had to probably shift his tactics slightly with no Killian O'Connor in there. And you've seen the last day, very few Mayo scores came from, like, obviously the Tommy Conroy is the standout one where he runs through the heart of the defence. But very few of the rest of them came from that. It was Darren Cohen around the corner. It was Jordan Flynn around the corner. Matty Moran with a big point. Robbie Hennelly from distance. Ryan O'Donoghue from distance. So they never went into that channel anyway.
Yeah. And just a word finally on Rob Hennelly, because, like, I really just think about his journey, and I'm sure, like, it's when I'm watching from the outside, it probably seems more like night and day. He had a bad game, or he made a bad mistake a few years ago, and then I see him again on the big stage, and obviously he's had a lot of good times in between. But I just think of, like, the adversity that man must have to come through that and then stand over a kick. If he misses that kick, it's game over. It's another game that Mayo have lost, and he just nailed it when they needed him most. And, like, I was so happy for him, and I'm sure everybody in Mayo.
Like, why didn't you line up the first question like that? You described my emotion in the first question there. But that's it. That's it. He's a resilient character. He comes from a really good stock, and his mom, dad, and his family, really good stock. He's got a very supporting fiance, and he's just one of life's good guys, And he's, as I said, we've two keepers playing on Saturday who have massive personalities, like huge personalities. You can see by Morgan, he's a bit of a buck to him. I'd say he's good fun within the dressing room. I'd say he's a big leader within there. And you nearly have the identical person down the other side of the field. And how their battle goes is going to be so close in deciding this game. So yes, Robbie had a great day the last day. I remember Morgan catching the last ball. You're on about big moments. Morgan catching the last ball against Monaghan. And a catch that he should make. But and I know, we've seen him over the years, that was a big play for him.
Yeah.
He commanded his area when his team needed him, and he punches the air like he just hasn't won the All-Ireland, Yeah. Remember, he tried to hand pass it out, it got blocked and went out for a wide, and he punches the air like it's like he's just after winning the All-Ireland. Like, so that meant a lot to him, similar to Robbie, bit of redemption with the kick. But them boys, the two of them boys want to win this on Saturday for so many reasons. One, you just want to win the game, but for their own journeys. Like, what a story either one of them is going to tell come Saturday, whoever comes out on top.
That's a lovely place to leave it, Andy. Thanks very much for that. That was brilliant.
Thanks, Conor.